CATAPULT.body is a project that British Council has initiated with the partnership of Yaraqa. We wanted to understand better where the dance and performing arts sector is. This project starts with a survey in which we are trying to reach out to the movers of the country to understand where they are and how do they feel about this sector nowadays. That survey is informing a conference. We're calling it a micro forum, actually, in which we are trying to engage as many people as possible to think the sustainability of the sector and start shifting the mindset around such a sector in terms of how it can interact with many other disciplines, such as the health bill, dance and technology, dance and disability, how dance can impact all of these disciplines in positive ways. The microforum is also going to be followed by a possibility of a residency. We're partnering up with Dancebase in Scotland. Along with Yaraqa, they're going to be designing a mentorship program over 10 weeks, and the last 2 weeks are going to be an on-site residency at Dancebase, in which 4 movers from Lebanon and 4 movers from the UK are going to exchange experiences and experiment and research possible performances. We believe that this sector has a lot of potential, has a lot of talent, and it just needs the right push to be able to flourish. And I hope that you're going to enjoy this conversation.
Welcome to this conversation that we are having about dance in Lebanon. We are joined by 3 fantastic guests, Romy Assouad, Jadd, and Tony Mills. I'm happy that you're all here to help shed light on this important sector. Romy, if you can give us a sense of what you do and what you're doing with the British Council as part of Catapult.
So, hey Mikey, thanks for having us. So I'm the director of Yaraqa. I've always worked at the cross-section of multiple industries, from performance to tourism, fashion. And when we worked with Yaraqa, when we started Yaraqa, the whole idea was to also bring dance at the center of conversations that are much wider.
Great. And your partner in crime is Jadd. Jadd, tell us a little bit about you and your background and your role in all of this.
Thanks, Mikey. It does feel like a partner in crime. It has that feeling. So I'm the product design lead at Yaraqa. I started off in a different area, and then Romy kind of started to understand where my strengths are and decided to just give me that platform, which has been super lovely. So I'm essentially the artistic branch of it. So I get to work with the team to figure out how to develop the products, and it's very collaborative, very iterative. And for this particular event that we're launching, this exchange with the British Council, it's the same thing.
Cool. Thanks so much. Tony, what about you? You are currently not in Beirut, so give us a little context about who you are and your role in all of this.
Hello, Mikey. Yeah, no, I'm not in Beirut whatsoever. I'm based all the way up in a rather cold, grey, well, actually, it's not too bad outside Scotland. And I'm the new artistic director of Dancebase. I've been in the job for about 4 and a bit months. Dancebase is kind of like the regional dance agency in Edinburgh and the Lothians. It is the National Centre for Dance in Scotland. We host a space for artist residencies, performance, and public classes for the community. And kind of we got approached by British Council to be the 3rd partner in crime for Yaraqa, and basically to, I guess, be an extension of the Catapult project as a view to bring Lebanese artists over to Scotland, and through the Catapult project, have them connecting with Lebanese artists, hopefully through this conference and also online and in person.
Catapult in general is focusing on creative economies in Lebanon. I don't think most people think of dance as part of the creative economy. So Romy, give us a sense of what the dance sector is like in Lebanon, and what the challenges are and what the opportunities are given the current situation in Lebanon.
So that's such a big question and not easy to answer. I think just like everyone around the world right now, I think times are very challenging and everything is so volatile. And everything that's happening in Lebanon right now, you really don't know what tomorrow looks like in any way. And so I think that the biggest challenge today for artists is that everything is changing, and how do we adapt to be able to continue moving forward? You know, we're having right now like a big exodus, you know, like a brain drainage that's happening. We're having, it's always actually been the ecosystem, and the dance ecosystem has been, you know, always been a little bit, I can say, cast aside, I would say, which is unfortunate. And in the same time, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of creativity, and if I might say, a lot of activism also within the sector. And so I think that right now it's really about thinking, how can we change the way we're working, work in a different way? There's a question also of relevance that's coming up a lot, you know, for artists right now, you know, when we're in a place where the society is really at survival mode in a way. So how do you also, you know, advocate that actually dance and culture right now has a huge role? So I think that there's a lot to do here, and a lot of also bridging with others outside of Lebanon, whether with the diaspora or with like the UK in this case. And that's going to really open the horizon. I mean, we've always done that, but now it's even more crucial, I would say.
Yeah.
I do want to jump off real quick on something that Romy was saying in terms of the dance and the creative economy. We have organizations, we have festivals, we have directors, dancers, producers, choreographers, agents. It is a robust industry in terms of personnel and in terms of roles. And so many of them actually move in and out of different other areas of the creative economy as well. It's just that in terms of its niche, in terms of a branch, it's still quite, the muscle hasn't really been developed just yet to the point where it can be seen as an equal playing field compared to other sectors within the creative economy. But in terms of individuals and talents, they're across the board, just they're so heavily involved.
Jadd, let me get you to chime in here. For somebody who doesn't know anything about Yaraqa, can you sort of describe what Yaraqa is from your perspective? I know Romy will have her perspective as well, but I'd be interested to hear your perspective as well. Like, what does Yaraqa actually do? What is this organization?
So I can talk about Yaraqa from the perspective as an artist. Yaraqa is essentially, I can consider to be the like, from my experience, the first openly, like, in your face social enterprise / creative producer / essentially just like everything. It's a hub for artists to be able to actually show up and learn, upskill, onboard, communicate, get to know each other, understand the needs. I've experienced similar structures in places like New York City, and places like Italy, but nothing like this that I found in Lebanon. So it really is just a central kind of focal point for artists of all, really for dance and movement artists, but you know, it can kind of ebb and flow. We do work with other artists as well, to just understand, you know, more about their business, understand about their economy, understand about their industry, and how they can actually, you know, carve a place for themselves. I probably butchered that, but
no, that's great. Romy, the reason why I wanted Jadd to go first was because I want to hear your answer second. From your perspective, Romy, what is the purpose and mission and sort of work of Yaraqa on the ground for somebody who doesn't understand it at all?
I think that, you know, having started myself dancing at a late stage, I think I've realized the wealth and the richness of this art form sector, whatever you want to call it, and that I felt has been, you know, very niche in a way. And there's so much to explore. There's so much skill, so much knowledge and know-how. And so I think that Yaraqa really wants to contribute to a better recognition of this sector and of the artists who are behind the sector. And as a result, what we're trying to do is to, as Jadd said, to capacitate the artists to create opportunities for both artistic and I would say economic growth. So it's really when you open up the horizons to new possibilities and new audiences. And when you collaborate with other industry experts, as Jadd was saying, it's not just only talking about bringing into dance, let's say, new possibilities, but it's also bringing to other industry experts new possibilities and new outlets. And so this conversation is very important to work in a more collaborative way on a larger scale. You know, this defends the idea of the creative economy because this is a sector that actually employs a lot of people. And so what we do is we work on different levels. We create productions that could come off as like based on a demand or on a certain request. We work with so many different artists. We don't have in-house artists, but we actually reach out to the artists and, you know, the genre and the roles that are needed per project. And that's what we really, really like about our work. And then we sometimes create the space to our labs to actually take a moment to, you know, test out and experiment and really, you know, think, how can we work on this so that it can be sustainable on the long run? And how can we really reach the audience? And this is extremely important when you should not be always in a state of supply and demand, you know?
What are some of the specific things that you guys have done? Like, is Yaraqa a space that teaches classes, or is it a performance venue? Is it a place that designs shows and goes around the country and performs? Like, in specific terms, for somebody who doesn't know anything about Yaraqa,
okay,
what do you guys actually do?
I'm going to start by saying what we're not, because this is an exercise we have been doing so long. We're not a dance company, so we don't have an internal troupe of dancers, and we have only, you know, our genre and our specific artistic vision. We're not a dance school. We don't give classes in artistic practices or dance styles. What we do is create productions on one aspect. And these productions are very versatile in form. So we have, for instance, we've created a docu-series. So it revolves around dance and film, obviously, and the written word that you can find on Netflix. We have created an immersive installation. We have created workshops for capacitating people in the workplace. We have worked on performance in the city, where people visit the city and discover it through a performer. I don't know, Jadd, I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. I mean, it's very versatile. It really depends, and that's the beauty of it. So every single time it's different form and shape, but the essence is dance and the body, I would say, and the moving body. Does that answer it better?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Tony, I'm curious, from your perspective, to understand about the work of Dancebase and what the scene, what the interaction has been like with Yaraqa as somebody who has a completely different perspective. What, if you can tell us a little bit about your work there and how it sort of differs and what your interaction has been like with this team.
Right. So if a 16-year-old wanders into Dancebase, you know, what happens? So Dancebase is essentially like, it's a building. It's a big old building. We've got 4 dance studios, some meeting rooms. We're in a really prime location in Edinburgh, bang in the center, called the Grass Market. It's a really old part of town. And Dancebase was built 20 years ago. It existed in an office in a theater in about 1980 something or whatever. And in 2000, 2001, it became this purpose-built building. And its purpose basically is to spread the joy of dance, really. That's essentially what we're all about, yeah? Which is about, we're about trying to make dance matter, okay? We host residencies, so artists both at home and abroad come, they apply to our residency program, and they come, they make their work. We offer 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, usually paid, sometimes it's free or in kind and stuff like that. We provide services to artists throughout something we call an artist support program, right? So if you're an artist and you're kind of like, I don't quite know how to do a funding bid, or oh, I don't quite know how to talk to a producer, or I don't quite know how to find a dramaturg for my work or something like that. We try and connect. We're like a connector, I suppose. And my job really, I've been asking myself a little bit, what is my job, you know? Because you land in these kind of positions and stuff, and it's like your job could kind of be anything in a way. You know, your job is kind of what you make it in these roles. But my job really, I see myself as someone who tries to open doors, you know, for opportunity, to create opportunities, to create spaces to put dance where maybe it didn't exist, to facilitate the development of someone's career in some way. So I'll give you an example. In Scotland, we've got a lot of what we call independent dance makers, people like myself, just a solo person. I apply for like funding, I get the money, I bring people together, we make a show, we tour it, that's it, right? That's basically the life of an independent dance maker. Sometimes you're teaching, sometimes you're performing for people, you know, maybe you work across sectors and things like that. It's a hustle, all right? But here in Scotland, there's a lack of jobs, right? So people become independent dance makers rather than dancers all the time. So as an independent maker, you can't often work large scale. So if large scale is like you've got 8, 9, 10 dancers on stage and you're working with them. So I'm kind of like trying to plug the gaps. I'm sort of trying to find opportunities whereby I can create access for independent dance makers to work with large scale companies, or to get their hands on, you know, 10 dancers in a kind of supported structure, because I see that as a kind of something that's underrepresented. I see it as a gap. And that's really what I'm doing. We've recently launched an opportunity to create work in a gallery. And, you know, this whole collaboration with Yaraqa is exactly about that. It's about, I mean, we don't know where this is going to go, but the idea is we're going to create an opening for artists in Lebanon. We're going to create an opening for artists in Scotland to hopefully find something new and unique that will lead to something fruitful, you know, down the road. We're exposing markets for them. They're exposing markets for us. We're exposing new ideas to them. They're exposing new ideas to us. You know, what happens, you know, who knows? But the fact that that's really what it's about. It's about cultivating opportunity, you know. And I just wanted to say this thing about this question about creative economy. You know, a long time ago, I would have shuddered at the thought of associating words like business, economy, industry, or capacity with an artist, you know. But I think there's a way for those two things. It is an industry and it is an economy, you know, and there are other things about capacity. And I think there is a way that we can sort of develop artists in a harmonious way as a creative economy. Do you know what I mean? And I think the really good thing about working with Yaraqa, and I suppose we'll come on to this point, is I really think they've got that kind of attitude, you know, of capacitation, you know, of like, you know, it's not losing sight of the artistry, but realizing your artistry is also business, you know, and that you can approach it from that way. And I think here in Scotland, because we had a culture of subsidy, where actually art subsidy has been pretty good over the years. It's been pretty good. So you've got a nice safety net, and that has slowly been eroded. And now it's like, well, actually, we need to be sustainable. Because previously it was sustainable because you had that financial support there to do your work, you know, 3 times a year, 2 times a year, you were sustained. And that's slowly been eroded, you know, as, you know, cuts have come in and stuff like that. So it's like, we're now encouraged that artists have to be sustainable, and people are like, well, you know, how do I be sustainable? Do you know what I mean? So that's the question we're kind of asking. And so I think through collaborations like this is sort of how we kind of get there.
I'm excited to see what that actually means on the ground in Lebanon. My understanding is that Romy Yaraqa started with a survey to start off this project. Give us a sense of how you approach doing that survey and what the impact you hope is going to be.
Yes, so basically, starting off this project, we wanted to understand where professionals in this field are. Where are they right now with all the chaos and you know, that's been happening the last 2 years? We didn't want to come from a position of assumption, even though we individually are artists, we are dancers, we are teachers in this field as well. And we have been working in Lebanon in that sense, as well as what we do in Yaraqa, but still, you know, depending on what you do, your needs are different and your situation is very different. And so from that perspective, we wanted to start off with a study, asking people to be part of basically developing this program, because we could have gone straight to the drawing board and started to map out things. And so the questions were basically, where are you right now? Where do you feel stuck, and what do you want to look forward to basically in your career at this moment? And this study was supposed to take a month and be closed. And as we started building it, and then we started getting the participation of people and the contribution, it has been so insightful, I have to say. It has been at the same time surprising and at the same time like heartwarming. It sort of connects you. Like you feel you're really, even if you haven't spoken necessarily to the people, not all of the people who applied, we know a lot of people are new to us, but this feeling that we are sharing something in common, I think is really, really nice. And it gives us sort of a blank slate to start from. Like we're starting from this. Obviously, we have our own also, let's say, thoughts as well to add to this. So the study is still ongoing. We want to keep it up. And at the same time, what we did is we closed the first round, so we could have a bit of a sort of a preliminary analysis. So it can inform our first activity or event under this program. And I can safely say also that what we're still doing right now, even with this event, is going to still inform us and inform people as well. Like, what do we want to do in this program together?
Yeah. How many people are you surveying?
So far we have over 80 participants, and actually we have more, but what my mind sort of stopped at the 72, because that's the number that's where we stopped to do the analysis that we've been like really diving in for the last month almost, I would say. And it's been very interesting.
Cool. Jadd, I want you to chime in about sort of what you hope the next steps are going to be for after the analysis of the survey is done, and how this sort of loops into the rest of the work that you're doing with Catapult.
Right. So again, I think just to reiterate, one of the most important things is that we can safely say that we're experts in the field. And one of the most important things about this study is that we're actually engaging with other experts in the field. So this really doesn't feel like a vertical kind of approach, top-down approach. It really feels horizontal in that sense, which in and of itself has been so insightful to us, because we see things. Within dance we have such a variety of different techniques, and a lot of times these demographics, these techniques, they don't overlap whatsoever. And through this study, we found that in fact there is a lot of overlap. That people anywhere from the tango technique to the ballet to the contemporary actually want the same things. And so in and of its...
What are some of the things that they would want? Give me a sense of what are some of the things that they would need.
Absolutely. Just to touch a few, connecting with other industry experts is actually a big one. Across the board, all artists do want to connect with other industry experts. Connecting with people abroad, so making collaborations, connections with individuals abroad, expert abroad as well, and then building out their portfolio, like anything that has to do with business. There's such a drive and desire across the board from all these individuals who are experts in the dance and movement industry to continue to move forward in what Tony was saying, a more sustainable way. So there's such a hunger and drive for it.
Considering how uncertain things are at the moment, and yet what the study revealed is that what people chose the most when we asked them what expertise they're looking for, or what do they want from such a program, let's say, or what industry topics they're interested in, and most of the answers are geared towards long-term development. And just like what Jadd's talking about, there's lots of interest in partnerships, lots of interest in, opening up to new ways of creating work, which is like cross sector as well. And this idea of outreach, of being able to present your work, and how do you communicate and show and be discovered or discoverable or whatever it is. And this is not something that, you can do. It's not a short-term thing. And that was a very, very interesting realization that people are looking on the long term, as Tony is saying. And even though it's very absurd, maybe somehow to think of this, but there's this question of how do we sustain?
And I think one of the most heartwarming things is to see how the industry actually is exploring their own relevancy. You know what I mean? Like how they are relevant, how there's so much potential energy that's wanting to just like go forward and be kinetic and really expand their horizon. And that, again, that drive in this day and age is, it's beautiful. You know what I mean? So what we want to do is we actually want to make space for that. We want to be able to facilitate that in a way that is holistic, in a way that is relevant, in a way that preaches and practices sustainability. Because it's one thing, sustainability assumes some sort of homeostasis. But we know in today's day and age that homeostasis is shifting constantly. I mean, tomorrow might be a different world than yesterday was. So to be able to actually practice that with this demographic, with this dance and movement industry, is huge. So again, providing spaces. So an up and coming one. I don't know if now is the right time to talk about it, but I'm going to. Up and coming one with Catapult to be CATAPULT.body, the exchange. And this is really going to be, I call it like a Silk Road kind of exchange where these industry experts are kind of coming in and out together with other industry experts, both local in the region and abroad. And they're really engaging through a process of information onboarding, through a process of making sense of the information, and then through a process of communication, engaging this dance and movement audience and attendees in a way where they can actually learn something new, something novel that they might not have known, process that information through some incredible hands-on facilitation, and then be able to bridge with each other and bridge with others, whether it's within their own industry or other industries as well.
So the word exchange signifies that it's a two-way street. So Tony, I want to ask you, as one of the sort of experts from abroad who would be a part of this, put on that sort of expert hat, what sort of things do you think will be exchanged, aside from the fact that you would, in theory, would be offering mentorship and facilitation? What are some of the things that you hope to get back and bring back to Edinburgh, so to speak, in that exchange?
Well, part of that, as Jadd was talking about, part of this catapult into this kind of in-person exchange will be dictated in part by the artists as well, because they're going to have this conference and there's a few topics to explore, and out of that kind of discussion we'll kind of develop what it is they're actually going to explore more tangibly, right? But I can say that from Dancebase's point of view, one thing that we are developing and one thing that we've been pretty good at is kind of dance in health and well-being. And in sort of for social care, as in terms of social prescribing, and it's in this country, the government's kind of sort of giving indications that they're sort of directing money down to support arts within that kind of context. So organizations are kind of shifting themselves so they can respond accordingly. We deliver a program called Dance for Parkinson's, which has been going on for 10 years. It's been very successful. It's been very well funded. And now it's expanded from being a Dancebase. It's now part of Scottish Ballet, which is one of the largest companies here in Scotland. It's in various hubs around the country. So we have a lot of knowledge kind of in that area and that kind of concept. And that's something it's something we've discussed between ourselves and Yaraqa, something that we would probably exchange upon. And that's something we could probably definitely provide. I think coming back, again, I just talk about this idea of sustainability. I just feel from the conversations with Jadd and Romy, from reading about Yaraqa and stuff like that, I feel like, they just got this sense of urgency about them, right? Which, everybody's under pressure right now, but I think in Lebanon, it's almost about like survival as an artist, right? And that just means that if you're going to survive, you've got to be very, very creative, you know, in terms of if you want to keep doing something you love and something you care about, then you've got to work really, really hard to be super adaptable, to come up with new ways to kind of like to keep doing your work, to work across industries. And I just don't think, yes, that happens a little bit over here, but I just don't think we've got the same kind of like versatility and urgency about it. So I'm hoping that one of the things that we will get from this exchange is at least an imprinting of that kind of approach, you know, because it is like people want to have more sustainable careers, but nobody really quite knows how to do it. You know, nobody really quite. You talk about sustainability, it's like this magical word, you know, that people just throw about. Both sustainable in terms of environmental and career, right? Sometimes you don't even know which one that people are talking about. Yeah. But in terms of your career, like people don't really know how to do it, because art, I kind of believe in a way, art takes subsidy. It either takes money, it takes time, it takes love, it takes energy. You know, you got to put something into it to get something out, you know. But I think there are ways, and I think through this exchange, I'm hoping that we'll be able to see things that we're not seeing, that Yaraqa kind of see from their side, really.
I couldn't agree more with Tony. I think that this is such a it's a word that's so exhausted. But is it exhausted enough within the dance sector? And then what does it really mean for us? And this is the issue when we start talking about dance and then business. And it almost feels like, oh, so now we just have to appropriate these words and just like, you know, put them as is. And that's not the case. You know, every sector has its own dynamic and requirements and whatever. So it's very important to be able to create these spaces where you can question, okay, what can I take from this? And what do I need in my sector, and how can we, like, you know, model things the way we need to, like, okay, sustainability, if we break it down, what does that mean? You know, and in our situation, it's also about maybe, as we said, opening up to different audiences, or creating different propositions, or working differently, creating more roles so that artists don't have to juggle 3-6 roles to fill in the gaps, as Tony was saying. So this is basically a big part of what this exchange is about, is to really re-question what this means to us, to sustain who we are right now. And there's no answer to this.
None of this is being done in a vacuum. And I think that's an important element to this, that we're not just, you know, in a room locked up and you know, coming up with this. There's so much intersectionality that's happening right now on a global scale. But if there's like a magnifying glass between the sun and earth, it's tilted slightly just enough to where it's beaming on Lebanon. So there's the urgency of like, it's a wafting, rippling effect, right? And we're learning with interactions with Dancebase, with other, you know, members of the community, dance movement community outside of Scotland and Lebanon, the UK and Lebanon. It's kind of happening everywhere, you know. So the intersectionality of understanding that this isn't just dance. We're not just focusing on dance. That it is there is relationship to the economy, the global economy. There is a relationship to our current times. There is a relationship to the environment. It's all connected, you know. So we're really approaching this exchange as that, because the last thing that we want to do is kind of like tap people on the butt and then say, go for it. You know what I mean? We want something that's a little more sustainable. We want to make sure that these people know that they can come back to this, you know? So ideally, this is something that potentially could be annual. This exchange could be an annual event. We want to create, in that sense, longevity, sustainability, and this feeling of safety, that it's a safe space for people to come into as well.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, it's something that we really suffer from here in Scotland. There's a lot of opportunity here, like to make work. You know, there's a lot of pots of money around and space that you can start to make a little bit of work. We have funded something like 26 artists over the last 3 months to sums of money of around £3,000 to £5,000, which is quite a lot of money actually, to, you know, develop some work and stuff like that. And now there's the question: well, where's it all going to go? Like, what's going to happen now? You know, so I feel like we have to kind of, the whole industry at the moment is really kind of revising our attitude to how we kind of support and develop like dance work, you know, in a way that is sustainable, also has longevity, where people aren't getting picked up and then dropped and then picked up and then dropped again. And then you've got to like, you're picked up and you're supported for a little while, and then you're dropped and you've got to fight for yourself. And that's kind of like the life of an artist over here is like that, you know? So with this kind of exchange, although it's like, it's going to be, well, it will be these you know, few weeks in Scotland and things like that, we are approaching it from the view that this would be a long-term thing in some way. It's got some life in it. That, as Jadd said, like the artist can come back to it at some point. It's not going to be this and one and done, you know?
Yeah. Well, when are the dates for the first exchange slated to be, Romy?
So it's the weekend of March 5th. So it's going to be a day and a half. It's both online and offline. Open to, there's limited capacity because it's conceived in a way to be like an intimate, I would say, encounter.
Yeah.
So and it's supported by British Council, obviously.
I want to talk about that relationship before we wrap up, the relationship with the British Council and with this Catapult project. Maybe Romy or Jadd or Tony, I'll leave it up to everyone. So what has that what role has the British Council played as an initiator, and how has that role sort of played out, I should say, for this project?
Yeah, Sonia, go ahead.
Well, like, you know, our CEO, actually, Dancebase, is an ex-British Council officer. He's been 18 years in the British Council, and he is a great middleman. You know, that's what he does. He's a great man. He's like always with the top brass and the politicians and the councils. He's the fixer. He's a fixer. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that's a disrespectful thing to say about the British Council, but I feel like that's kind of what they do. They have a knowledge of people working in a particular country, and they have a knowledge of people working in another particular country, and they just kind of bring people together. And that's kind of how it was. I think the relationship maybe with Yaraqa and the British Council representative is, I think Mark is maybe a little bit more substantial, but it was kind of like they kind of introduced us together, and have been quite supportive actually. They're quite behind. I think, you know, obviously they can't be too impartial, but they seem to be quite behind the project. They've given a lot of assistance. You know, we're doing this podcast, etc. I mean, from our point of view, it's been a great opportunity to meet people that we probably would never have crossed paths with in the first place.
Yeah, and I will bounce on this and say that I am unmuted. Yeah, so I will say that what I'm really glad about in this partnership, it's a real partnership. Like, we really feel it's a real partnership. This idea of this way of sort of localizing the efforts of the British Council, and I think has been very, very interesting. And you can feel the sense of trust, but also this intention to work in real collaboration to build something. So this trust in us and vice versa, and the way they're opening doors, but we're thinking together. And I really, really am enjoying this because, you know, it's enabling us to think, okay, what doors can we open? And such as the doors that we hopefully are opening up with Dancebase, that I think are very, very interesting. It's already for us very interesting, and will be for other artists. So it's been very nourishing, I would say. And if I may also speak about the second component that we're going to be doing together with Dancebase, unless Jadd, you want to bounce anything here before I
just want to say again, it's a matter of synergy and alignment. And in periods of volatility like this, when you can actually align in such a way where the trust is just inherent. I mean, this has been the relationship with the British Council thus far. And it's kind of one of those things where you wake up and you're like, you want to pinch yourself because you're like, wait, am I missing something? You know what I mean? So it's just been, I mean, you know, it's just been, you know, great in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the notion of, I think the way we need to work more in general, not just in dance, anywhere, is we can't do we can't work alone anymore. It's important to work within ecosystems and partnerships, and I think we are already doing that with the British Council is already embodying that, I would say, in this program. And in the next component that we're aiming for with the Dance Lab that I would like actually Tony to share more about, but what I will say is after the exchange, it's going to be this lab that is going to be in first start virtually between Lebanon and Edinburgh particularly, and then there will be an in-person residency, but I'd like Tony to share more about it, Naomi.
So the idea is that once the conference ends, we'll have this lab period. It'll be a period of working online, and then we'll bring everybody together in Dancebase for 2 weeks. I think it's in June or May, off the top of my head. And it's kind of an idea to kind of realize all the things that they've been talking about and working about in person. But also, as well as working together, it's an opportunity for the invited artists to get to understand the scene in Scotland, to attend some events, to have meetings, to meet the programmers, to see the venues, see the places, the spaces. Also to have some hang time, right? Some slack time, some thinking time and stuff like that as well. And it'll be, I think it's going to be part curated, part facilitated, but still mainly artist led. Really, it's very difficult in Dancebase to get space in the building because it's such in demand. So we really had to fight to kind of, carve out that kind of 2 week period. So we're very much looking forward to making it happen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time to chat with us, and especially for all the work that you're doing. We're really excited about this. And I hope to be able to benefit from all of your work as somebody who lives in Lebanon.
Thank you so much, Mikey, and you're invited to the exchange, definitely.
Sounds great.